Something that I've been thinking about recently is whatever the next Souls game or Elden Ring game is that has PvP, what are some changes that would make it better for everybody? And that's what I wanted to do today, is make a list of 3 changes that I would love to see happen. I'm fully aware that these changes may never come, but this is more so a video as food for thought. And so if you have your own changes, list them in the comments and we can have a discussion about what would make the game better for everybody. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start listing these off. It's also worth mentioning before we begin that I'm going for changes that perhaps people have not thought about. Everybody's talked about turning off Taunter's Tongue being bad for the game, as well as there needing to be a higher player count. I'm going to try and go for things that perhaps people have not thought about, so without further ado. The first change I'd like to see made is that there is not a way to get console saves onto USB drives. Now, the reason that this is as big of a deal as it is because that's how people get cheated items into the game. Sure, it's easy to make builds if you're able to put the save onto the computer to cheat engine all the items that you want in, which can be convenient, but I generally think that it's a net negative for the game because you can also just dupe with your friends if you need to make a build that quickly. If you've ever seen somebody that has an ultra great sword that has unsheath on it, or a fingerprint shield that has spinning slash on it, as well as many other things, it's because of this feature right here. So either some changes need to be made to it, or it just needs to go in general. The next change that I'd like to see is for the max level to be very low in comparison to what it's always been. So I'm saying something between like level 100 and level 200. There's a few reasons for this, and I think it's a very interesting change. So first is that it would make it to where whatever the max level is, it's going to be nowhere near as oppressive if people are overleveled phantoms. The other aspect of it too is that it'll make sure that the population of players are much more condensed, meaning that there should be way fewer problems when it comes to the game feeling more dead and sloggy as the game gets older. Now, the final change that I'll list in this video is I'd like to see every single attack, more or less, have a whiff animation if you don't manage to hit your opponent. So, a symptom of these games getting faster and faster is that it's become increasingly more difficult to whiff punish your opponent, and doubly so when the latency is bad. But I think that there's a way to still preserve the speed at which these games have been playing, while also making it more realistic for the defender to be able to land their counter-strike, as well as making it take a little bit more thought to be able to land your attacks of your own. And by that I would make it to where there is some amount of in-lag added in the form of a whiff animation if you miss your attack. Now, perhaps part of the balancing of this would come in the form of like different weapons having different amounts of end lag, but generally speaking I think it would be a great change because there are some things in this game that are legitimately bordering on unpunishable. So for example, the backswing of Shamshir, if you're not hyper armoring or passive poising through it, is pretty much completely unpunishable, as well as a dagger attack that they did not say press at the wrong time, you just happen to be in your attack already. You're never going to be able to punish that. As well as there being a lot of Ashes of War that, despite how much damage they can do and how easy it is to get that damage, are pretty much unpunishable despite how much they can do for you. So just some examples. There's the Hand of Melania. It's not the world's greatest Ash of War, but you're pretty much not going to land a weapons attack as a counter hit if you manage to wait that attack out due to the last hitbox. It is possible to shoot someone that's in it, or perhaps hyper armor with a colossal weapon, but if you're not using one of those things, you pretty much just have to watch them and do nothing about it. As well as the Sword of Damnation, due to that version of it where if you've missed you can still poke the ground, it's a very tight timing to be able to say go for a backstab before that comes out, and if you haven't done that then you simply just don't get a punish. And that's also assuming that there's not a lot of latency and that as you go for say the roll that you don't just get pulled out of it and turned into a Christmas tree. There's also Ashes of War like the Spear of the Impaler, where you have that gigantic anime combo. I do believe that there is a point that you're able to backstab your opponent when they're doing the second bit of the animation, when you're doing the 3 fiery thrusts, for example. But if you don't manage to get that, then there's pretty much no punishing the final hit into the ground where the spears come up. Because weirdly enough, the spears have a lingering hitbox when a player uses it, whereas Mesmer does not have a lingering hitbox on the same attack. So, one of the few examples of the weapon being stronger for players compared to the boss. But with that being said, I know that this is a much shorter video than everything that I put out normally, but I just wanted to get these thoughts out in a very condensed way and perhaps start a little bit of a discussion. So with that being said, I hope you enjoy, and I will see you guys this coming week. Have a good day, everybody.